We all control what kind of teammates we are. It takes no talent to be a great teammate.
Hi, everyone. It's Kara Goldin from The Kara Goldin Show. I'm so excited to have my next guest here. We have Austin Hatch, who is the founder of Overcome It. He is an amazing, amazing human and also is an incredible motivational speaker, too. If you are looking for somebody to come in and talk a little bit about resilience and determination and getting over some incredible hurdles, Austin is your person. And despite major industries from two plane crashes, that he went on to join the University of Michigan's Division I basketball team. He's overcome so many hurdles, and this is a guy that has grit and resilience. And we actually met through a mutual friend, Scott McGregor, who really called attention to Austin and his journey, and I'm really, really thrilled to have him here. So welcome, Austin.
Thank you so much, Kara. I really appreciate having me on. It's really an honor and a privilege to be with you today. So thank you.
Absolutely. So let's start with your story. So you grew up in the Midwest, and you and I were talking a little bit before about how you were, had an incredible time growing up with your siblings, and you played some basketball hoops till late at night. Tell me a little bit about where did you kind of learn that resilience? I was an athlete growing up as well, and I always say that naturally sort of setting goals for yourself to keep getting better, always knowing that you want to play with the people that are a little bit better than you all the time. Those kind of things help you to build teams, help you to build resilience. But I'm curious, what is your thoughts on that?
Learning to compete every day is really important. And obviously in sports, it's important to learn to compete. And obviously you're competing against the other team and yourself in a way to be the best that you can be. But also I think, just taking every day as an opportunity to get better. And you're never as good as you think you are. There's always somebody out there who's working harder than you. So that kind of pushes you as an athlete when you're young to, work hard to be the best that you can be. And yeah, I'm so grateful to have the upbringing and childhood that I did. And yeah, just love playing sports. And yeah, definitely that competitive mindset, for that I learned from sports definitely translated over to other areas of life as well.
I love it. That's amazing. So talk to me a little bit about the timeline. So you had not one plane crash, but two plane crashes. I mean, that's amazing and scary at the same time. So talk to me about the first one. When did this happen?
Yeah, so tragically, I had an amazing family, as I was telling you before. My mom, Julie, was an incredible homemaker for our family, and my sister Lindsay was a great ballerina, had such a bright future to look forward to, and did great in school, and had so much opportunity ahead of her. And little brother Ian was young; he was only 5 at the time of the first plane accident, tragically. But yeah, that accident claimed the lives of my mom, Julie, who was 38 at the time, my dad's high school sweetheart. They were married 18 years at that point. My sister Lindsay was 11, as I said, and little brother Ian was only 5. And yeah, incomprehensible loss. But my dad and I found a way to keep moving forward. And obviously for my dad, it was different. Losing a wife and children. I can't imagine what it was like to lose a wife and children. I'm married now. I've been married 3 years, only 3 years, but hopefully 3 years on the way to about 63. But yeah, I just he kind of showed me the way, showed me how it's done, and led by example.
And so you were how old?
I was 8 years old, about to turn 9.
And so at that time, so you're raised by your father at this point, and what do you think were the key things that, obviously you were a young kid, what did you think about the future? I mean, how did you think about it? And obviously your dad had a huge impact on it, but when you think about resilience and grit, I mean, so many people, I think, would just give up at this point. I mean, how did you continue to move forward?
Yeah, well, my dad led me by example. And I think leading by example is the most powerful, one of the most powerful ways to lead. Obviously, we got to show, or, for those in leadership positions like yourself, maybe this is not fitting for me to say, but I feel like, there are times when you got to, ask people to do things, ask people to fulfill their responsibilities. But, also what I've learned from my dad and Coach Beeline at Michigan, the example that they set for me is so important. And, when I was as a young boy, my dad, just the way he lived was one of the greatest men to ever live, as far as I'm concerned. And he was just a good human being, And the amazing thing about my dad, maybe we'll talk about this more in a few minutes, but he left every person and every place he went a little better than he found it. And I'm like, that, if we can all do that, right? Maybe it's not by doing anything big, but just by going a little out of our way to make somebody else's life a little bit better. I feel like that's a recipe to have a good life, a happy life, and add a lot of value, however you choose to define that. So
that's incredible. So the second plane crash, you were how old?
I was 16. So my first one happened when I was 8. My dad was remarried a couple years later. We had a great blended family that restored some normalcy in my life. And I got to be pretty good at basketball. I was working really hard on my skills. And my dream was to always play for Michigan. My mom went to school, and it's been in my family for years. I grew up going to football games at the Big House in Ann Arbor when I was, really young. But then I, obviously lost my mom, was terrible, but still had this love for Michigan. And my dream came true on June 15, 2011, when Coach Beeline called me and offered me a scholarship to play for him at Michigan, which I accepted on the spot. I just finished my sophomore year of high school, and yeah, it was a dream come true.
Wow, it's incredible. So the second plane crash at age 16, you were at that point. I mean, how did you think about life overall? I mean, after that moment, I read that you were in a coma for 2 months. Was that the first or the second plane crash?
That was the second one. So the first one, I wasn't injured too bad. Just had some really bad burns on my arms and hands. But then the second one, I was almost killed. I was in a coma for 2 months with a traumatic head injury, punctured lungs, 5 broken ribs, fractured clavicles, broken pelvis. I had a long list of injuries, right? Hematoma in my leg and so I was in rough shape. By the grace of God, I went into a coma. It was good for my body to heal. That was the best thing for me at that point. But then, I had so the crazy thing is, my traumatic brain injury was the worst level 7 traumatic brain injury. One of the worst ones, the doctors at the hospital in Traverse City, Michigan, and one of the worst head injuries they'd ever seen. They came out of a coma. So I'm blessed to be here. And, so my traumatic brain injuries are measured on a scale of 1 to 7, 7 being the worst. Obviously, every traumatic brain injury is severe, but levels 1, 2, and 3 have a pretty good chance of, returning to normal life, regaining independence, things like that. And levels 4, 5, 6, and 7 have decreasingly smaller chances. And level 7s being the most severe, no one knows what the future is going to hold necessarily. It doesn't always look good, but mine was the worst level 7 they've ever seen. They came out of a coma. I'm so blessed to be here. And how can you not be grateful when I experience something like that? And I'm so blessed right now to have the life that I do, be married to the girl of my dreams, and get to make a living by serving other people. I mean, we're just so blessed.
Incredible.
It's hard to imagine how life could be any better.
So according to MIT statistician Arnold Barnett, the odds of surviving a plane crash with 1 fatality is 1 in 3.4 million. Surviving 2 is 1 in 11 quadrillion. And I mean, it's amazing what you've been through. So again, I think oftentimes when bad things happen in our life, certainly this is, bad times 10, I think in many people's minds, people just stop. They get depressed. They don't know how to move on. And I think that you are a living example of somebody who's just decided you have to move on. You talk a lot about understanding the deeper reasons that drive our actions, and how do you train people to discover those underlying motivations?
Yeah, I think being driven by a greater purpose is so important, but we need to work for something bigger than ourselves, because I feel like if we're working this for ourselves, it's pretty likely that life's going to present us with adversity, opposition, challenge, trial, tribulation, what have you, that'll probably cause us to give up or give in because we don't have a driving force for why we do what we do. It's different for everybody, whether it's your faith, your family, your friends, your teammates, the organization you're a part of. Hopefully all of us are somewhat internally driven to be the best that we can be, but I think having a greater purpose is very important. For me, when I was on those tough days in the hospital, as I was coming out of the coma and had a long road to recovery ahead of me, I felt that how I responded to that adversity was a direct reflection of my family in heaven. And how could I not give everything I had to the process, if I was remember that every day? And I also felt that I owed it to the people, to my friends and family who were put their life on hold to be there in the hospital to support me out of the goodness of their heart. It did no good for them. Maybe it was cool for them to be a part of a cool story and support me. Maybe made them feel good, but they did it for me. And so I felt that the least that I could do is give my best, give my all to make the greatest recovery possible. And that was my goal. Wasn't just to make a recovery. And I hope things work out. My goal was the competitor in me from sports, right? I wanted to make the greatest recovery from a level 7 traumatic brain injury that's ever been made by anyone ever. And I don't know. I just think every day, every day, go big or go home, like my dad always said.
No, I absolutely love that. And I think people can learn so much from other people's examples and, frankly, other people's tragedies along the way. When someone has fallen down or hits a difficult challenge, what do you say to those people besides get back up? I mean, how do they get back up?
I think it starts with setting little goals, right? So Coach Beeline from Michigan came to see me when I was in the hospital at RIC in Chicago. It was renamed to the Shirley Ryan, health or medical recovery rehab center, Shirley Ryan something. And I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk at this point. And Coach came to see me and said, "I can't wait to have you on my team someday, Austin. Whenever you're able to get to Michigan, I can't wait to coach you." So I had a long way to go. I couldn't walk at this point. And he told me he can't wait to have me on his team at Michigan, one of the greatest universities in the world, right? But if I can't walk right now, I got to learn to walk first, and then eventually learn to jog, and eventually learn how to run, and eventually learn how to play basketball a little bit. So if I want to get to Michigan, that's the ultimate goal. Check off little boxes on the way. Learn how to walk first. For me, literally, or for what other people everybody listening to this is dealing with some challenge. Kara, you're facing a challenge. Everybody's dealing with something. And I think we can all, just metaphorically speaking, learn to walk again. Just take a little step forward, and then another little step, another little step, another little step. And over time, I think we'll be in a pretty good spot.
I feel like so often people forget to celebrate their wins, right? And I think I gained the most strength from actually looking back on those times where I didn't think I was going to be able to do something, right? Whether it's get my first job or tackle a big challenge around fundraising or whatever it is that seemed really scary to me at the time, that when I look back, I gain a lot of strength by just knowing I actually got through it. So often it might not have actually gone exactly the way that I had hoped or that I had kind of specced out in my mind. My goal was out there, but I was also pivoting along the way, right? Maybe things took longer for you to do it, but do you often find yourself looking back on those times when things were challenging for strength?
You mentioned pivoting. I think learning how to win in a different way is never a bad thing. Learning how to win in a different way is never a bad thing. I had this. So when I committed to Michigan on June 15th, accomplished my lifelong dream, I thought I was going to play my junior and senior year of high school, have a good high school career, and then go to Michigan and be a good player there and help the team win. But I was faced with an obstacle, and that made me pivot a little bit, right? And obviously, I'm not grateful for the obstacle or grateful for any of that. But if winning, metaphorically speaking, would have been going to Michigan, having a good career, and helping the team win on the court. That wasn't possible for me after the accident, though. But winning, what was winning to me was being a great teammate and filling my role in the team to help the team win. And so I just made the decision, I'm just going to find a way to get to Michigan. I don't know how I'm going to do it right now. Right at the time, I was starting my junior year of high school, and I missed a year of school because of the accident I was recovering. So it took a year longer to get to Michigan. But I kind of just said, I'm gonna find a way. I don't know exactly how, but I'm gonna find a way. And I think that's important in life too, a lot in business, in anything. We have these lofty goals or whatever they may be. Maybe you want to double the size of the business in 5 years or whatever. Or you want to overcome this obstacle. We don't always have to have a detailed game plan of exactly what we're going to do to accomplish that goal. I think a lot of the time, I think we just got to find a way.
I absolutely agree. And you have so many incredible tools that you talk about of just not only finding the grit, but also, finding the purpose, right? That you're really setting out to do. How were you able to kind of define your own purpose, and how do you suggest for others that they find their purpose? If they're sitting here thinking, what is my purpose? I mean, I've never been in a plane crash or 2 plane crashes. I mean, what is my purpose? I make a decent living, or maybe I've had too many failures. How do you move forward to find that? What's the first step?
Yeah, I think, everybody's purpose is different. And whether it's your faith, your family, your friends, your organization, your teammates, whatever it is, everybody's got a different greater purpose. And I think I think we have to have an honest, self-assessment, self-reflection, and to figure out what that is. Because nobody, I can't tell you what yours is. You can't tell me what mine is, or anybody else. Right. But I think it's just, if you think about it, if it's your faith, your family, for me on my road to recovery, it was honoring my family in heaven, as I mentioned before, and also honoring showing my appreciation for the people that were there to support me. Because I could say thank you to those people, but if I wasn't working hard to recover, that doesn't really mean much. So I think saying thank you and showing your gratitude are both important. And you don't want to show your gratitude and never say thank you, but you also don't want to say thank you and then I don't really act like you don't really care. You know what I mean? So I think just finding that purpose and you just got to kind of, tap into that. It's your faith, your family, the organization, whatever it is. I can't speak for everybody who's listening to this, and I can't speak for you, but your purpose is something bigger than yourself. Whatever that is, whatever you decide that is. I think it's just important to recognize that what's something that you're willing to sacrifice for. I think answering that question, what's something you're willing to sacrifice for? If it's your spouse, if it's your family, if it's your faith and you want to live your life in accordance with scripture or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I think your greater purpose is something you're willing to sacrifice for.
I love that. No, it's great. So the grit framework that you've developed, I love it. It's simple, but I think it's the simplest things are usually the most successful, I think, in anything that we do in life. Standing for growth mindset, resilient, integrity, and team first mentality. So I love that. And I really, really think that it's something that everyone should look at. It also teaches us how to approach any circumstances that are out there when you think about, trying to figure out resilience and resolve along the way. So what's your hope for people? Like when people are coming to listen to you and they hear some of this, obviously people will recognize, what you've been through, just getting through these tragic times and losing family members, building on, getting through really, really crazy situations, including 2 plane accidents. I mean, there's not very many of you out there that are able to sort of have that in your history. But what do you think is the key thing that people can learn along the way and that you're hopeful for?
Yeah, well, so I talk about that GRIT acronym, right? I talk about the growth mindset first and foremost. The growth mindset views adversity as opportunity. The growth mindset believes we can grow from anything we experience in life. I firmly believe that. The R is the decision to be resilient. If you make the decision to be resilient, we focus on the things that we control, things like our attitude, our work ethic, our response to adversity. The I is integrity. And of course, you all know integrity is about being honest and doing the right thing when no one is looking. But I think especially in the context of overcoming any obstacle, or really achieving any goal, especially as a team, integrity is about following through on our commitments and doing what we said we were going to do, especially when there's a change in circumstance. You think about what Coach Beeline did for me, right? He felt the fact that he followed through on his commitment to me, despite the fact that our circumstances drastically changed after the second plane crash and I couldn't play. Coach Beeline did a common thing in an uncommon way. He did a common thing in an uncommon way. And if we do that common thing in an uncommon way consistently, I believe we're going to leave people in places a little better than we found them. The last letter is T. T to me is the team first mentality. I think we should always think about the team first. Every person on every team, every person in every organization on the planet has a role. And that role is very important. Otherwise, that person wouldn't be on the team. I'm sure you have people on your team. Every person matters. Every role matters. And so I felt that, for me, I couldn't play at Michigan. I scored 1 point in 4 years. I actually, Kara, I don't know if you assumed you were going to be having the conversation with a Michigan record holder. I'm in the record books at Michigan, believe it or not.
Wow.
I'm in the record books. I'm the all-time lowest scoring full scholarship athlete in program history.
I love it.
But if what I could do to serve my teammates, right, it was shag balls in practice, unload luggage on road trips, rebound and shoot on before games. If that was my role, that was my role. So I think that grit, that growth mindset, the resilience, the integrity, the team first mentality. I can't say if we have those things, it's going to guarantee you that we win. But those things are all 100% in our control. We can't make every shot, metaphorically speaking. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. COVID's going to do what it's going to do. Like, things are going to be challenging. But if we can control our attitude, our work ethic, our mindset, our follow through, and our mentality, we all control what kind of teammates we are. It takes no talent to be a great teammate, no title to be a great teammate. So yeah, it's a blessing to be able to share some perspective about the things that I've learned along my journey, both from the road to recovery, from the injuries I suffered in the second tragic plane accident, and also from my time at Michigan, being a teammate there, being a part of the Michigan organization. So yeah, it's a blessing to be able to serve and add value to a variety of organizations.
Well, I think something else that you touched on, which I think is really, really important, is the mindset of chin up and figure out how to move forward, and also look at life as your journey, not so seriously, because certainly you've added humor to your life too. The ability to laugh at yourself to some extent, right? As just because you're not number one in something, it doesn't mean that you can't be number one in something else. And I think that is something that, look, people want to be around that too. People always say like, oh, I want to be with the best. Well, I think your ability to laugh at yourself and not take yourself so seriously too, but also have that grit and determination is quite enjoyable. So you certainly, Austin, your message is nothing short of inspirational, and your advice and the whole grit system is so actionable. I really, really loved seeing it. Where can more people find out about you and also just about your system?
Yeah, so more information is on my website, www.austin-hatch.com, austin-hatch.com. There's more information there. I'm also on LinkedIn, of course. Would love to connect with anyone who listens to this. Would love to connect. Would be honored and grateful for an opportunity to serve any of your teams whenever it would add the most value. So yeah, it's really fun to be building this business to impact and inspire as many people as we possibly can, one person at a time. And Carrie, you were mentioning just at the end of what you were saying there about, responding, about adding a little bit of humor and not taking yourself too seriously, right? And just enjoying life. And I think that overcoming adversity, it's hard, right? But and for anybody listening to this today, what you're going through is difficult. It's challenging. And for me, this is just one thing that I did on my journey. I whatever you believe, doesn't matter. I prayed, maybe you're spiritual, maybe you're not. I prayed that I would be able to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. As it says in the cadet prayer at West Point, it says, Lord, help us to never be content with a half truth when the whole truth can be won, and make us choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. It's harder to overcome obstacles. It's hard to be resilient. It's easier to allow ourselves to be the product of our circumstances. It's easier to allow our businesses to be a product of the market. Obviously, the market is going to impact every business, but like the current state of things in our country, whatever it is, COVID or anything else, I prayed to God that I would be able to choose that harder right instead of the easier wrong. Choose the harder right of getting that would help me get to Michigan, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's easy to allow yourself to be the product of our circumstances, but it's easier. It's hard to overcome. So I encourage everyone listening to choose that harder right over the easier wrong. And yeah, just find a way.
Using your inner drive to just get through things, I think is really more than anything the huge key message that you bring. Well, thank you so much, Austin. I loved every minute of this, and thanks for sharing where people can find you. And definitely thank you, everyone, for listening in today. We're here every Monday and Wednesday with incredible leaders, founders, CEOs, incredible stories that really hopefully inspire and help you to figure out how to build grit and resilience and know how to do things. And really, more than anything, if you get a chance, please rate the podcast, definitely the overall podcast, 5 stars, and Austin, 5 stars. You were incredible. Your story's incredible. And definitely hope that you all get a chance to follow me on social at Kara Goldin with an I. I'm on all platforms. And thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.